Okay, so today we are going to see the difference between var, let and the const keyword used in case of variables in JavaScript. So for that, let us just first create the boilerplate also. Just name it valid const. We'll create the script tag. I'm simply creating a function. Okay. See, var, let and const are the keywords, right, in JavaScript, which are used to declare variables, as I said. So each has different scoping rules and behaviors, right, which means that they differ in scope, hoisting behavior and reassignment rules. So let's check how can we see it practically. So as for var, this var actually declares variables with functional global scope, and it allows redeclaration and the updates within the same scope. So if I say this in a nutshell, I can say that our var has functional scope. Okay. First of all, what's hoisting? So it's basically a JavaScript behavior where variable and functional declarations are moved to the top of their containing scope during compilation before code execution. Fine. That means here our containing scope is this entire function. Correct. So within this scope, the top of the scope is this place, right? So here the declarations will get moved. The declaration gets moved to the top of the containing scope in case of variable hoisting, right? In case of the hoisting, okay. Hoisting for var, okay. However, the initialization doesn't get moved. So it has been initialized to Krishna. This particular value doesn't get moved. So this value is only is accessible once the code execution comes to this line. Okay, then only n equal to Krishna gets assigned. Before that, the initialization value remains undefined. Okay, so basically hoisting implies that we can use a variable or function before it is explicitly declared in our code, and it will still be accessible. We can access it, but its value will be undefined. Okay, so let's see. See, n is undefined. However, when the code execution moves to the next line, where n equal to Krishna, the value of Krishna gets assigned to n, and that is why this console log n gives us Krishna, right? So next is our hoisting with let. Var has got functional scope and our let and constant has block scope. So just let simply create a block. For the time being, I am using if true. So obviously this block will get executed. So let say anything like say x equal 10. Okay. So when we just trying to show this, obviously within this x gets executed. Correct. What if I try to access it outside the scope? X equal 10, within the scope it's actually giving the output 10. However, this one x outside its block scope, this is giving, it's line number 20c, error at line number 20, uncaught reference error, x is not defined. So what is actually happening, we don't get hoisting in case of let. Technically, however, we can say that technically it is hoisted. So variable declared with let are technically hoisted, but without a default initialization, as in case of var. So in case of where the initialization happens with undefined value, right? But in case of let, although we can say that technically yeah it's hoisted, but without a default initialization, that is they are not initialized, and this is what leads to the temporal dead zone. Okay, and the reference error we see when attempting to access them before their declarations. Now what is TDZ? That is temporal dead zone. See, a variable is declared with let or const. It is said to be in a temporal zone or TDZ from the start of the block until code execution reaches the place where the variable is declared and initialized. Okay. So here also what happens, until unless it reached this place, the declaration happened, right? And the initialization also happened in case of var. It got initialized to undefined. That is why that's the value we got. However, over here you're getting a reference error because outside the block of obviously it has got no scope. Now let us come back to the hoisting part. So obviously within the content scope hoisting should occur. As we said that technically it gets hoisted, but without its like let's just comment it out. Without initialization to undefined value, it gets hoisted. Obviously over here also it will give us reference error, as it has not been initialized and it falls under TDZ. Uncaught reference error, cannot access X before initialization. Line number 17. So it's line number 17's error. Okay. So hoisting actually, technically we can say that it occurs, but initialization never happens. So let us just recheck what happened over here. See, here also reference is X is not defined, but here X is not defined. It's saying X is not defined because it's outside the scope. So over here it is saying X is defined. That means somehow it got declared, right? But it has not got initialized. See the difference? Okay. Now the next one is const. I'm showing it over here only. From our previous video, there also we have put const country equal India, remember? Okay. So obviously, if we are going to try to output its value to the console, this console using console log. See, the first video we have mentioned that JavaScript is single-threaded, right? It's single-threaded and it gets interpreted line by line. So if any error comes in any of the lines, the remaining of the execution comes to a halt. So uncaught reference error is like actually blocking the entire thing. So what we are going to do, for the time being I'll comment this out to allow a smooth execution. Okay, say India is displayed. Let's check hoisting. Actually it doesn't allow hoisting. The reason being, you cannot redeclare a const, right? You cannot think about initialization because redeclaration itself is not allowed. How can you think about reinitialization, right? So it's not possible. So declaring variables with const, it doesn't allow reassignment that we have seen in our previous video, and the code will throw a type error when trying to reassign. See, uncaught syntax error. Identifier country has already been declared, so we cannot redeclare a const. So obviously there is no question of hoisting. Let's check reassignment is allowed or not. As we have said that reassignment is not allowed, and we have seen in our previous video that it's not allowed. We are just recapitulating it. Uncaught type error, assignment to const variable, line number 22. So you cannot reassign to a constant variable. Check. So here also uncaught reference error, cannot access country before initialization. Okay, so accessibility is not at all there for const, right? So hoisting is not at all allowed. Now coming back to our point of let, whether redeclaration in let is allowed or not. So let's just comment it out, because it's showing, see, over here itself it's showing. Cannot redeclare block scoped variable x. Still, let's go to the console and check. Uncaught syntax error. Identifier x has already been declared, right? It's a syntax error. Cannot redeclare let.